Welcome back to another YouTube Tuesday. Today I'm going to be going over a YouTuber that's been around for quite some time, over a decade. Most of you probably already have heard of him as he's been quite involved in the repair industry over the years. And that is Louis Rossman. Louis Rossman has been uploading videos for over 11 years now, has over 3,500 videos posted. Now a good portion of the more recent videos are him ranting about random stuff. They're entertaining, but the majority of his content, at least going back a couple of years and previous, is full of really good information when it comes to repairs, specifically on MacBook repairs. Today we're going to go over one of his videos that he had originally live streamed. He had edited it down to about a 50-minute video. I'm going to edit that down to about a 20-minute video. I'm going to also edit out some of the profanity that he uses and some of the rants that he goes on. I'm sure I'll leave a few in. He's very entertaining. Some of you might love him or hate him. Needless to say, I think he's got a great channel with a lot of really good, solid content. He's done a lot with regards to right to repair. And so if you're interested in seeing that whole process and what he went through, along with others like Jessa Jones, for example, head on over to his channel and watch it. Let's get into his video.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Today we're going to be working on an A2289 MacBook, and we're going to try and figure out what's wrong with it, why it's not turning on, and see if we can make it work again. Let's see what's going on here. So hopefully this is something that's going to be easy, breezy, beautiful, cover girl, nice simple board repair. We can get ourselves a nice happy fan spin if MacBooks even have fan spin anymore. You know, they make MacBooks now that don't have fan spin. You already need to ground yourself. I touch something that's attached to ground, once or twice, and then I get to work. What I'm supposed to be doing, remember, it's not about grounding yourself. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to rip all the flex cables of the screen of the device. Tell the customer it's totally dead and unfixable. Refer them to Drive Savers, where they get quoted $300 for a screen replacement, and call it authorized repair. That's what you're supposed to do. See, if I was doing things properly, that would be my method of repair. But I'm on.
For those of you who don't know, for a lot of you in the repair industry probably don't worry about grounding yourself. It's definitely important to be grounded to a certain extent when working on a logic board that has a lot of exposed components, like a laptop. Most of the time, an ESD shock doesn't occur. It's an electrostatic discharge. It doesn't occur, but it can if you have carpeted floors, or depending on the type of clothes that you wear, you're going to build up static in your body. You could potentially kill any electronic or damage it or make it hard to repair by touching it. So someone's saying he needs to ground himself. He doesn't have a wrist strap on that's grounded. So that's his little go-to. It's kind of one of those things where, to be extremely professional, you want to have it, but for the most part, nothing's going to happen.
Unauthorized, so yeah, I just ground myself and then actually try to fix things. All right, so let's see what's going on here. I'm going to plug this mother in. We're going to check a few things. I got a schematic open, and all right, see what it's doing. Okay, so as you can see, it goes 5 volts, 200 milliamps, turns off. So let's see, what is going on with the, well, this looks pretty obvious over here. So what do you see? What do you guys see? Do you see anything good? I see something bad. See if you can see something bad, though. Okay, so this is over here. We have a CD3217. This is going to be necessary for charging. We're stuck at 20 volts. We're stuck at 5 volts. We're not going up to 20. So let's just take a look at the schematic and the board view for a moment. Okay, CD3217 is very much so similar to the CD3215 in other models. So this is going to be the chip that speaks to the charger and requests 20 volts. And this chip is going to be powered off VIN. Voltage in is going to be PP3V3 underscore G3 hot underscore RTC. And I'll be able to measure that somewhere over here.
Now, you guys see, he's looking at a schematic, and this is both the board view and the actual written out schematic. He goes over in quite a few videos how to read schematics, how to understand the difference between a capacitor, a diode, a transistor, a coil, all of the components that you might find on a motherboard. So if you're interested in learning about how to read a schematic, he has videos covering that. And obviously he walks through kind of his thought process as he goes throughout his repairs. So it's well worth, especially in a lucrative area like MacBook repair, especially motherboard repair. If you want to get into that, this is a great channel to at least start, if not basically learn a good amount of things from.
Interesting. They don't have the cap right next to it anymore. I got to go all the way over here to get my PP3v3 G3 Hot RTC. Okay, so let's see that on the board. Turn on the multimeter and see what the resistance is to ground on that lovely power line. That's going to be the main rail. 0.3 ohm short to ground. So that is shorted to ground. Now I'm going to take a guess that this chip is not turning on, which is why I'm stuck at 5 volts instead of 20 volts, because it is not receiving the power that it needs to actually turn on and request 20 volts from the charger. This PP3v3, this voltage in, PP3v3 underscore G3 hot underscore RTC is not present. I'm going to take another crazy guess that this on the board over here is a big part of why that's not working. And let's see if I am close to right. So, do we have anything related to PP3v3 underscore G3 hot underscore RTC in this area that is covered? I would hope the answer is yes, because that would make life easy for me. It would explain the problem. So I'm going to click on PP3v3 underscore G3 hot underscore RTC over here, and we're going to see if there's anything in this area, because that would make it easy.
Now, even if there isn't something directly on that line, there are lines that are attached to it that could be causing the issue with this particular repair that he's going through.
Okay, so one area, well, here's the funny thing. The one thing over here that actually has that going to it is nothing other than a resistor between this and something else. So that's not going to be it, because this stuff isn't even really present on the board. Now, the thing that's really corroded is this cap over here, C6915. This piece right here, that's the real burn. So you look over here, what is that for? C6915 is PP3v3 G3 hot RTC reg. Okay, this has hope. So this is not PP3v3 underscore G3 hot underscore RTC. It's PP3v3 underscore G3 hot underscore RTC underscore reg R. So I'm hoping that means it has a connection to PP3v3 G3 hot RTC, because that would mean that is my problem. That would be great if that was my problem. Here we go! Bada bing! Okay, so PP3v3 underscore G3 hot underscore RTC is my shorted rail, right? This cap looks like this is technically not PP3v3 G3 hot RTC. This is what it is before a 0 ohm resistor, but that's the same thing, bro. It's the same thing. It's literally the same rail, just before a fuse. So before your 0 ohm resistor, aka your fuse, you have PP3v3 underscore G3 hot underscore RTC underscore reg R. So the reg R over here is literally just the name for this power line before it goes through this fuse. So if we knock this cap off, I'm hoping that the short is gone, and if the short is gone, then we have a working board. Bada bing, bada boom. One way to find out, I am going to turn on my iron. We're also going to clean around this area a little bit, because it kind of looks disgusting, and I don't... remember the rule. Remember the rule. We're going to usually heat and reflux the area before it is we ultrasonic it, so that none of those connections go bad. However, we got to be careful over here, because we got a Wi-Fi chip that's underfilled and probably paired to the board. This is going to be a tough one, because I can't really do a lot of what I would usually do in that area, a lot of the hot airing and fluxing, since I'm right by underfilled Wi-Fi.
So one thing to note there, he was talking about, if he goes to an ultrasonic, what can happen sometimes is the ultrasonic will literally blast away the not only the corrosion, the rust, the oxidation, but it can also damage weakened areas that you need. And so it might knock off a component and the pads that you could potentially salvage by going in with some flux, some solder, and freshening them up. So in certain circumstances, ultrasonicking should be saved till later. If it's minor corrosion and there's nothing that's looking like it's this bad, throwing it through an ultrasonic might actually fix the device. It also... another thing that it does is throwing it through an ultrasonic first kind of eliminates the areas that you may need to kind of have pointed out to you when and if you still have a short. And so working on a board first before throwing it through an ultrasonic and clearing all of the really problematic areas and going over them thoroughly probably is better to do than just going straight to an ultrasonic.
Might actually make sense to ultrasonic first and then resolder everything after. Turn the ultrasonic cleaner on, because it tends to heat up a little faster when it's on. So the first thing before we get to everything else is just a really, really basic 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, okay, there we go. Now, again, I'm not going to clean everything up right now. That's not what I'm interested in. I really just want to see if my short is gone. And remember, at every step during a board repair, you want to be cognizant of whether you're getting closer to getting out of the pit, closer to being out of the sewer, or further into the rabbit hole. In the Shawshank Redemption, how close are you to being in the warden's office versus Awantaneo? And if you think that you will never make it to Zawantaneo, you got to move on. Okay, so I'm 99% certain at this point that if I were to use my multimeter probes, keep it in resistance mode, that my short to ground on that power rail is gone. But I can't be certain 100%. Yeah, okay, here we go. 3.4 kiloohms, so this is probably going to turn on. But I'm not going to put power into it yet until we just do a little bit of cleaning, because you got to admit this area looks like... And we can't give a customer back something looking like this. What do I look like to you? A genius bar that refers customers to drive savers? I actually care about my customers. I actually want to do good work by my people. Yeah, see, this stuff is barely hanging on. Like filing your nails. Just like filing your nail. Did all your staff go on vacation at the same time? I thought you were done doing board repair streams. You know, that didn't happen this week. It actually did happen a few weeks ago because I'm a really bad manager. I do give people like a good vacation time. I just don't expect them to all literally use their vacation time at the same time right after moving to a new place. That was a fail on my part for management. I'm not great at managing. I'm going to do better in the future. Thank you very much, XPYR. That's very kind of you. Now, as you can see, most of these components that I'm resoldering are really... Let's be real, I can't give this back to them like that. I'm honestly just fooling myself. I'm kind of procrastinating getting up and getting a donor board to take all these components from. Like, this is bad. I can't... Yeah, like, this is bad. I have to... Okay, we're going to have to take all that stuff off, because that sat there for way too long with way too much corrosion.
If components on the board look this bad, the best thing to do is to just remove them and replace them. Even if they currently work, the fact that they've kind of been hit that hard with corrosion will inevitably mean that downstream they are going to fail. And so it's best for the board, for the customer, for the repair. Just take the extra time and fix the stuff that looks bad, even if it still technically works at this moment in time.
You know, somebody was arguing in the comments of the recent video I did with Jessa. They were saying this ridiculous crap like, put it in rice, or this is what rice... Like, rice actually does dry things out. You do want to do that when Jessa was saying that rice doesn't do anything. The rice is really useless. It really doesn't do for you. And when you use rice, you wind up getting machines like this, where, okay, that was technically dry. There was no water inside this machine. Did that honestly make you feel any better about using it? I don't think so. You shouldn't feel any better about using it, because it's no good. So we are going to go over to the donor section and find some place where I can get all these little components that I need again. We're going to find ourselves a donor. I'm pretty sure that with my luck, all the donors are going to be missing all the parts that I need. That's usually the way things work on this channel. If you've been watching for any period of time, you are aware that that's exactly how things work on this channel. Okay, so we are going to say goodbye to all that stuff, because keeping that there is essentially what we call cope. We're going to take all this junk off, because that's what this is. You gotta go. And I'm using the box cutter to heat sink the Wi-Fi chip, and at least hide the heat from it. So you may notice I'm pulling the components off a little roughly. Since I'm very close to a soldered-in Wi-Fi chip, I really don't want to use more heat than what is absolutely necessary to get the job done. We'll make this work anyway. It's like a dance. We'll use every negative to our advantage. Thank you, Oblivion. I don't know what that means, though. You'll see how we use everything to our advantage in just a moment. Use a little bit of wick. Now, usually you don't want to use wick a lot because it's going to scrape the pads, especially when you already have solder on them. But in this case, I actually want to do a little bit of scraping because some of this is really, really nasty and it has a lot of dirt on it. And I kind of want to get that off before I do my scraping. You don't move the Q-tip back and forth. That's how you get a bunch of fibers in the board. Turn it in a circle so the fibers that come off go onto the Q-tip naturally. Why not use desiccant instead of rice? Because you don't want to dry it. Drying it's dumb. It's all based on a false premise anyway, that you actually want it to be dry. If anything, it's actually better off wet with the battery out than it is dry with the battery in.
That's true. In fact, I did an experiment a couple of years back where I basically submerged a phone in water with the board fully exposed and to see how quickly it would short out, which it did fairly quickly, especially because I just use regular tap water. It would have shorted out and done more damage if it had more minerals like salt water or detergent or something like that in it. But I also compared it to using distilled deionized water. Nothing happened to the board when I used that. And also when I used a 99% alcohol, nothing happened while it was submerged. And one of the things that alcohol does is it naturally displaces water and the minerals along with it and the ions. So if you ever have a device that goes into mineralized water, like any water really, dunking that in 99 isopropyl alcohol will actually help save the device, because not only is it a good cleaning agent, but it'll also displace the damaging water and help break up that so that it doesn't continue to short out or have issues. So yeah, rice, you don't want to just dry it out, because that leaves behind the corrosion, the oxidation, the minerals, things like that, and it can leave the bridges, leaving the shorts. And when people put it in rice, they subject it to all sorts of power by trying to plug it in and turn it on because it's been 24 hours or whatever. And they're just furthering the damage. So rice, anywhere drying out devices doesn't work. If you get a device to work because you dry it out, it was going to work regardless of whether or not you dried it out quicker or not. That means the damage wasn't that bad. It was not the rice that saved it or the drying out. It was going to come on regardless. You just give credit where credit isn't due.
Okay, so that little leg over there is probably going to go and get replaced with a jumper, unless it wants to lay back down. There we go. You're laying back down. Your hand's not shaking uncontrollably. It's just the natural rhythm necessary to do the scraping. Sometimes it's all about perspective. Many things in life are about perspective, and it can be the difference between moving forward and continuing or falling into depression and failing. Always consider adjusting your perspective. Remember, you don't want to just take solder and put it on the pad. You kind of want to make sure that the pad is actually being heated. Make sure the iron's making some nice contact. And don't push with your hand all the time. Actually try pushing down with your elbow. If you take a different, what's the martial art I'm thinking of? There's this one martial art where everything is supposed to be with your elbow. If you do Wing Chun, every move, you're supposed to be driving from the elbow. Like Tan, elbow. Bilsao, elbow. Fuksao, elbow. You're not using your chest, your shoulder, your muscle, your hand. You're using your elbow. And the same thing kind of helps if you have a shaky hand and you can't control your hand movements anymore for undisclosed reasons. What you can do is, instead of using your hand, try to think of it as using something else. It'll come in very handy for you. It's like, this is me using my hand. No. This is me kind of trying to move in with my elbow. See that? See the difference it makes? See, I look like a damn artisan instead of a complete useless spaz. It makes all the difference in the world. Sometimes it's just a question of perspective. Now, those two pads over here that look like they are shorted together, that's actually okay, because as you can see in the board view, they're supposed to be shorted together. Okay, so I'm almost happy with the solder joints up there. Not quite happy with this capacitor over here, so... See that red stuff? That's the motherboard bleeding. That's the motherboard being sad. That's a nasty damn via right there. Okay, that section's gonna get a wire because that via looks like trash. And that trace all that looks like trash, honestly. Yeah, probably a good idea to stay in retirement. Okay, we will address that later on. That's gonna be addressed shortly. No big deal. That'll go on when I want it to anyway. No big deal. Nothing to get worked up or excited over. There's a method to this. I'm not going to be hot airing every individual resistor into place right next to an underfilled chip that is paired, serialized. You know what? If Marcan wants to be mad at me for saying that, he can be mad. I don't know. I honestly don't know if it's paired or serialized. You know what I do know? I can't replace it and have it work. Would love to know why. Would love to have access to a document that would tell me why. But I'm a pleb. I'm essentially a pleb. What I am is a nobody. I don't get to know why. Maybe I never will. I assure you, as nasty as that looks, there is a reason to it. I am not going to be messing up the soldering on an underfilled Wi-Fi chip that needs to be the original in order for this to work. If we're going to heat that area right along the edge like that, it's going to be done as minimally as possible. So I'm going to approximately solder everything in like this, and then hot air is what will move it into place at the end. Like, this looks disgusting, and I get it. Like, if you're IPC certified, you're probably looking at this and like screaming at your screen. But there's a reason to it. Technically, I mean, it's possible to use hot tweezers, but I don't have a set on my desk at the moment. And honestly, my hand is too shaky to even remotely get the placement right anyway, so I'm going to do what works for me. My 2050 MacBook Pro is boot looping, no errors, any ideas? My idea is it needs to be fixed. That sucks. I'm sorry, were you expecting me to diagnose an 8-year-old computer with a random failure and no history over the internet and while I'm in the middle of a repair? Oh, that's funny. Yeah, this is not the time to ask me a question like that. Ask me when all this stuff is put back together. For any Please Bro stuff, I want you to head over to youtube.com/19pld73. It's 19pld73. That will do it. Okay, I'm being a salty right now. I get that. But now technically, I mean, there was just barely enough metal left there that Pro point would have been fine for a while without me doing that. But it really comes down to the question of would I trust that long term and would I feel good about leaving that in the customer's computer in that condition long term? For which the answer is no. Which is why we scraped away the area that would look nasty and we did this. Now you may think that was violent scraping and that, oh my, he actually destroyed that section. But essentially when you have something that's completely broken like that, you don't want to try and just barely leave that standing there. I want to destroy the trace of that so that I can rebuild anew and rebuild better. Guess who was blowing cold air on the board just then and expecting to solder something? It's kind of funny, wasn't it? It's funny, wasn't it? No! Why do I have Kim playing from Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP in my head? It was funny, wasn't it? No. It was funny, wasn't it? It's one of those iconic albums that just never leaves your head, you know? No matter how much time passes, I'm always going to have that playing in my head, in the background. Just a little bit. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. It's when we ride. Just the two of us. Tori Amos did a really good cover of that song as well on 97 Bonnie and Clyde off of the Slim Shady LP. Oh, Tori Amos did an entire album where she did nothing but really creepy covers of songs that were originally by men, and it's absolutely amazing. Tori Amos is absolutely amazing, for being real here. Tori Amos is awesome. By the way, let's celebrate that Jack Audio has not crashed for the entire stream. That's not something I'm used to around here. Okay. Even back then, I get it, maybe it's just a generational thing where things just get weirder with each generation. Back then it was weird for a rap, what was considered weird but acceptable is a rapper who was talking about killing his wife on, killing his wife routinely on his videos and his mother. That was weird, but we'll accept it. Now weird, but we'll accept it is okay. Well, we got a little bit of junk over there. Gated reverb on, oh man. You guys know which album ended gated reverb, right? Actually, I'm going to give you guys 3 guesses. Which album ended gated reverb? Do you know? One moment. That's just a disposal company. Thought I was getting towed or something. Forgot I'm not in New York anymore. I actually park legally here. In New York, what everybody used to do is they would put a screwdriver. And if you go by FIT campus on 27th Street and 8th Avenue, it's so hysterical. So what everybody does in New York City by the old store is they would put a construction vest, those reflective vests that the construction people wear, and a screwdriver or a hammer in their window, and then they would park on FIT's parking. So they wouldn't have a parking permit, but they would pretend I'm a contractor so that they wouldn't get escorted out by security. And the funny thing is, one person did it, and then another person did it. And then literally when you walk on 27th Street in New York City, between 7th and 8th Avenue during the day, every car there has a reflective construction vest and a hammer or a screwdriver in the window. Literally all of them have that. And none of them have a parking permit. It's hysterical. Tell me more about how your Mercedes S580 is your construction vehicle of choice. Or your Corvette or your Mustang. You're not fooling anybody, but apparently they're fooling security because they don't get towed. So at some point, it's you know what? F it. I'm doing that too. So I every day. I very rarely drove in New York City. Very rarely drove to the store. But when I did, I was all about the construction vest and the construction vest and screwdriver. I ain't paying $50 for parking. I'm very curious if that scam is still going. If anybody who's watching this video lives in New York City and can let me know if that scam is still alive and well, I'm very curious. If you go to 27th Street between 7th and 8th Avenue, how many people have construction vests in their windshield of, their car that is so very obviously not used for construction? Okay, so none of you guessed the album. So the album was Sheryl Crow's Tuesday Night Music Club. If you listen really closely, you'll notice that that was supposed to be the lead single on that album, Run Baby Run Baby Run Baby Run Baby Run, has a lot of gated garbage reverb. Whereas the song that was really not expected to do as well as it did, all I wanna do is have some fun. Da 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 da. You're not the only one. That song actually has no gated reverb. It's as dry as can be. And that's there's a little bit of delay on the vocal, but it's not like, you know, the standard 80s bullshit gated reverb, garbage drowning in reverb that you hear elsewhere. And that meant something. By the way, that pad that ripped off is unconnected, so you don't got to worry. See? It's connected to nothing. That's why it came off so easy. So that album, once that album did as amazingly well as it did, it got people to realize, wait a second. So we don't need gated reverb. Wow. So gated reverb doesn't make things sound big. It makes them sound far away. Like, it's almost like for the entire decade of the 80s, people thought that adding a bunch of reverb made things sound big. But no, it doesn't. It just makes them sound far away, which sucks. And if you'll notice the timing, all the albums that came out around the time of that album had a bunch of gated reverb. And right after Sheryl Crow's Tuesday Night Music Club came out and All I Want to Do Is Have Some Fun was, you know, topping the charts day after day, people realized that gated reverb sucks.
For those of you who haven't really looked into Louis Rossman or don't know anything about him, part of the reason he got into electronics was because he worked in a recording studio and he had to do a lot of repairs that involved electronics, and that's kind of how he got his, I guess you could say, start is that. So he has a lot to say when it comes to music and audio and sound quality and stuff like that. So one thing to say though is his audio in his videos is pretty much he really likes good audio. So if you don't want a lot of background noise when you want to listen to somebody talk about what they're talking about without any issue, his videos are really good.
And albums stopped coming out that were filled with gated reverb, if you look at that time period. So one of the things, that's actually not my favorite song off that album. Tuesday Night Music Club is... Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to see if this thing turns on and works. First thing we're going to do is just see the amperage that it takes. Anyways, you can see we're at 20 volts, which means it's turning on, which is pretty cool. That's pretty cool. It's obviously going to need a cleaning. It's going to need an ultrasonic cleaning because this is, you know, unacceptable, having flux and junk all over it, and just doesn't look very nice, and it should look nicer. That's important if we're giving it back to a paying customer. Also going to see if it boots and all that good stuff. Before we do that, I'm going to clean off the table. Yeah, Sheryl Crow has a special place in my heart for killing gated reverb. Not going to plug everything into here in the kitchen sink. Just enough to get started. Leave the audio board out for now. I still rather listen to 80s gated reverb tracks over most stuff today. The 80s had some gems. I'm not going to argue with you there, my friend. I'm not going to argue with you there. I'll take gated reverb over some like little Uzi any day. Okay, so it is booting up to here. Pretty cool. Can't be mad at that. All right, now I don't have the customer password, and this is one of those newer models where I can't boot into my own operating system externally without their information, which is another lovely thing about these newer MacBooks. Do correct me if I'm wrong there, but I'm fairly certain on the newer ones, it is easy to set up so that I can't boot into my own external drive if I don't have their password or information. So we'll have a nice conversation about that later, and we're going to clean this board off so that it's in a nicer condition to give back to the customer. It'll go through an ultrasonic cleaning process. The ultrasonic cleaning process will ensure that there's no corrosion anywhere that I missed while I was going through my process. It also will get rid of any of the flux, the dirt, when I'm using my dental pick over here to scrape away at pads or traces or vias that have liquid damage, corrosion, rust and on it and everything. That stuff is kind of going around the board. And even when I'm using a Q-tip, even if I'm spinning it like this, it's still kind of moving that stuff around the board. And I really want to make sure that when this goes back to the customer, it has none of that stuff on it. So it's going to be going into a nice Crest ultrasonic cleaner over there that is going to be cleaning out the board and making it look nice again. And it's going to get reassembled. It'll be tested by Mr. Greg over here, who has the desk behind me, who does all the reassembly and testing of everything to make sure that what I did actually works. And then it's hopefully going to go back to a happy customer that was told by Apple there was no way to get their data back and no way to fix their device without replacing everything on it. Glad that it ended up here instead of Drive Savers. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.
All right. There you go. So as you can see, he's entertaining, but he also takes his time to kind of walk through his thought process in fixing things. A lot of his content is longer form than this. He definitely rants a lot about stuff, but it's entertaining. I enjoy it. He's almost at 3 million subscribers. So he definitely has a substantial following for a YouTube channel that is very specific on repairs. Now, also people also subscribe to him for his podcast type things where he's basically just ranting about stuff. But and it's entertaining. So leave comments down below what you think. Do you love him? Do you hate him? I know that over the years I've been able to fix several hard problematic issues on MacBooks because of watching his videos and understanding the thought process behind his repairs. So I think it's worth subscribing. If you have a channel that you have in mind that you'd like to have me look at in a future video, let me know in the comments below. Thanks a ton for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for another video.